This is why so many marriages don't last. And in my work as a couples therapist, for many, many years, too many to count. Okay. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, and this is the work that I do. This is the work that I've done in my own life. Okay. So I'm speaking from a place of experience. I'm also speaking from a place where I have assisted in empowering other relationships through these type of things. Okay. And so this is why marriage don't last. Number one, the thing that we have to recognize is that much of your life has been created in your childhood. So, and I think we undermine the influence that our childhood has in our current life. Okay. And so, in some of Lindsey Gibson's work, where she talks about the inner child, and she talks about, the fantasy self, the true self, and then um, the role self. And so a lot of us in childhood learn to play a role to get love. So remember, for a child, the lack of love is not like, okay, oh, somebody's not going to love me. It's survival. So for a child, it's survival. I think we minimize our childhood far too much. And we say things like, oh, I'm over that. That doesn't bother me. But truth be told, your childhood is why you are who you are. So the thing I want you to understand is sometimes to figure out who we are, we have to go back in our childhood. So then we become adults, okay? And where we've got this fantasy about love and what love is, and then we get involved in religion and it just gets complicated. And it's tiers and layers of intellectual, of intellectual, of intellectual. And we're in this role. And so what happens is you live your life and you turn 40, you turn 50, and you start wanting to return back to your true self. And that's where, when you see these couples that, they've been married for 20 years and they divorce, and you say, gosh, what happened? What happened was they weren't able to be their true self in that relationship for various reasons. Maybe they didn't feel safe. Maybe they didn't feel safe enough. Maybe they felt like they would be judged. Okay. And so, I think we never evolve emotionally. It's easier to evolve externally than internally. Okay. So it reminds me of the story about the guy that dropped his keys inside the house. And he walked in the house and he dropped his keys. His keys flew across the floor. So he thought, I'll turn the light on and find my keys. So he turns the light on, and then he realized he didn't pay his light bill and they had turned his lights off. So he got down on the floor and he's searching around for his keys inside the house, and he couldn't find his keys. So he thought, so when he peered out the window, he realized that there was a light pole outside of his house where there was light. It was illuminated and it was kind of shining in on the house. So he thought to himself, it might be easier for me to look for the keys outside of the house because that's where the light is. So he goes outside and he starts searching around. And so his neighbor comes out and he says, well, what are you doing? He says, well, I'm looking for my keys. So the neighbor says, well, let me help you. So the neighbor, and now minutes have passed and they're both Two people are looking for their keys, looking for his keys. And so his neighbor said, "Hey, any idea where you dropped these keys?" And he said, "Yeah, I dropped them inside the house." He said, "Wait a minute. Why you got us looking outside the house when you know you dropped the keys on the inside?" And so sometimes it's easier to look where the light is. And sometimes the light is outside. It's easier. It's less pain involved. It's less responsibility involved. So we can blame other people. We can blame society. We can blame God. We could say things like, the devil is attacking me, which doesn't resolve anything, by the way. It's just an overcomplication. And so I think sometimes to solve a problem, we complicate the problem when really all we have to do is solve the problem. And that's why I do enjoy the work that I do, because I help people solve problems. Okay. And so we've got to heal. We never heal because it's so painful to work inside and to look inside than it is to look outside. So we have to heal. And oftentimes, that's not until we face adversity after adversity after adversity. It's interesting because when I talk to couples that have divorced, I often ask them, I said, well, um, do you remember what you divorced about? Like, what was the divorce about? And they say things like, we just grew apart. I guess that makes sense. And they say, honestly, you know what? I don't remember. I guess we just didn't fit anymore. And that's because the lack of internal work. So, one consistency that we know, and that's change. Things are going to change. And baby, you need to change as well. Thanks for tuning in. If you want more like this, comment, like, subscribe. See you in the next video.